Welcome to another WPHubSite Getting Started video. So far you've set up all your settings for your website, got it connected to your domain, set up two-factor authentication, things like that. In case you haven't, check out the other Getting Started videos. This video focuses on creating a page. That's going to be one of the first things you're going to want to do on your website because without pages, well, nobody can navigate your website. Unless, of course, you just are running a blog and that's it and don't need any pages. So when you first create your website, you already have some sample pages. You can find those over in the pages right here. This site has quite a few additional pages that I've been creating and testing, but each one of these is a page like contact, support, things like that, the home page. Each one of those is a different page. So you'll see the demo home page is, if you click view, is the home page of the website. So in order to create a new page, there are two places you can do that. I'm going to come back here in the dashboard. You can go to pages, add new page, or from anywhere in the site, front end or back end, as long as you're logged in, you can go to new and then click on page. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to dismiss the tooltips. If you want to kind of get acquainted to the WordPress block editor, then you can go through these tooltips. I'm just going to close out of them though. So the default is set up for pages to be on the site builder. That's the WPHubSite site builder, which gives you a lot of power in building custom pages, custom layouts, and really doing a lot with that. But you can also use the standard editor. Towards the end of this video, I'll go over some of those standard editor features. But for right now, first, before you even choose whether you're going to use the site builder or standard editor, there's a few things you have to get right and set up for your page. So before you do anything, you have to name your page. So this is gonna, help you refer back to it later if you need to open it. It's also the title of your page, and WordPress creates a slug out of your title. Now the slug is what creates the URL of your website. So if the slug is contact, then your page is going to be your domain / contact. So here I'll name it contact page, and you'll see that if I save the draft, this is also an important function. Before you actually publish a page, you can click Save Draft, and that's gonna it's not gonna publish the page to the front end. It'll only be viewable to people that are logged in, so you'll only have access to that. But you'll see under permalink right here, it created a URL slug based on the name. So you may not want the slug to be that long. Like, what if I wanted the page to be contact WPHubSite? Well, I don't want the slug to be contact-WPHubSite. I just want contact. Simple and easy. The more simple and clear you have your slugs and pages named, the better. You don't want huge, complex, long names. So I would recommend typing in the title and then editing that slug to be very brief and short. Things like /about, /contact. Just the main key phrase of the page is good to stick to. So I showed you the save draft real quick. When you make changes in the page, it's always a good idea to save drafts as you go along. WordPress will save a draft in your browser cache, but I wouldn't rely on that. You want to also save versions of your website on your server. And that save draft link will do that. So another important section of this to be acquainted with and to understand is the status and visibility section. This is gonna set how your page is viewable. So right now the visibility is set to public. That means anybody, if you publish the page, anybody's going to be able to see it. It's just in draft mode right now, so nobody can see it. But if I publish it, then it'll be visible to the world. I can change that though. If you click on this link, you can choose private, so it can be a published page, but only visible to admins and editors who are logged in. So it's not visible to everyone. You can even password protect certain pages, so you can set that to password protect. So you can also change when it's published. So when you hit this publish button, you can change it from immediate to a future day. So you can schedule blog posts for a different day of the day and time. See, I can schedule the day and then I can schedule the actual time. And this is based off of your website's time zone. So that's part of the settings that you went over in a different video. And you can also move a page right to the trash from here. Now you can also do things like, I'm going to shrink this permalink. That's an important piece, but the next important piece is a featured image. You're not going to set this for every single page of your website, but for really important pages that are going to be shared on social media a lot, you might want to set a featured image. When pages are shared on social media, the social media site, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, will actually pull in information from the page you're sharing. And one of those things it will pull in is the image. And you can set that in the featured image. There are other places where you can change it. You can set a specific Facebook image, a specific Twitter image, things like that. But it's easiest just to set it in the featured image. You're usually going to use the featured image for blog posts, but you can also use it for pages. Now, by default, discussion, comments, and stuff on pages are not enabled. I would recommend you leave that disabled. It's not really standard practice to have comments on a page, but you can, if necessary, enable the function of allowing comments right here. And then under page attributes, if your page is saved in drafts, you'll have this option, or saved as a draft, you'll have this option. You can actually set other pages as the parent. So if you have like a demo page, so if you have your website/demo, you can create a new page and choose the demo page as the parent, and it'll be your website.com/demo/ your new page. So you can actually create a subfolder kind of structure with that by choosing parent pages. And it also breadcrumbs and things will pull that information into them, so they know that, that Google and stuff knows that this page is a subpage of another page. That it's a child of another page. So another part that you'll want to look at and may want to customize, depending on how you've set up your site in the WordPress customizer, you can choose to display the sidebar in certain pages, or you can just use the customizer defaults. Same with the content layout. And then there's also different sections that you can disable. As far as for pages, I would recommend at least disabling the title and the featured image. Disabling the featured image does not disable it from social media pulling in that image, but it does disable it from showing as part of your homepage, which doesn't look good from the design point of view. So disable at least those two. Alright, so once you do that, you'll notice there's also SEO information, and before you publish pages and posts, you'll want to edit that information. That's for another video. There will be a video on the SEO, configuring all the SEO stuff, so I'm just going to leave that alone right now, and we're going to move right on to the launch site builder or using standard editor. Site builder is going to give you a lot more flexibility for creating new pages, moving content around. You can create really rich information with that. The standard editor is pretty basic. It's the standard WordPress block editor, formerly known as Gutenberg, but it's extremely basic as far as how you can format pages. It's great for posts. You should be using it for posts, but not pages. So first I'm going to get into launching the site builder and kind of show you around that a little bit, and we're going to create a basic contact page. And I'll show you how this title comes into play later. So I'm going to click Launch Site Builder, and we're going to open up Site Builder, and I'll show you how you can create really rich, nice looking websites. So this is a site builder canvas. It may look a little bit different than for you when you open it up, because it may be a little different. It may look like this, where you can click the plus to add new modules. You can expand that and drop that down. You can drag this drawer also to the side, which is where I had it. You can drag it to the right or the left, and it's just going to stay persistent there. This will change depending on what you're doing. This is the canvas, and then these are all the modules that you can drag into your page. Before I get into that, I'm going to cover some of the site builder settings. So this is a menu right here that you can click, and this has all the tools for the site builder. So among the tools, you can publish the layout. You can save this page as a template, so you can actually create pages and then save them as templates to use on other pages. You can duplicate layouts, so you can just duplicate this page. It creates a new page, and that's it. Pretty simple. You can also preview the layout, so that's going to close the toolbar and everything and open a preview of the page, so you'll see what it actually looks like. And then you can also do responsive editing, and I'll show you that in a little more detail, but you can edit the page in desktop, which is the default, and then when you switch to responsive editing, you'll see now this is tablet view, and then you can switch to mobile view. So I'm going to go ahead and exit that right now and go back into the tools. And then you can also set some defaults. This section in here are defaults for this page, global settings, things like that. So if you click on layout and CSS, you can add CSS to this page. It's not going to carry across all of site builder pages, but you can put custom CSS in here, custom JavaScript, and then save it. I'm going to cancel that. And then you can also do that with global settings. You can, there's a whole bunch of global settings that you can set. So like the max width of the page, you want to make sure that's set similarly to what you've set in the customizer for the theme. You want those two to match. And then you can, select the default row width and default row content width for new pages when you create them. You can overwrite that, or actually this is for new rows when you drag them in. So if you drag a module in, it creates a new row. By default right now, it's going to create a full width module or a full width row, but the content is going to be fixed within that row. So like the background, that can bleed all the way to the left and right, but the content will stay fixed in the middle within that 1200. And then columns, you can choose default padding and margins, and you can set that custom for desktop, tablet, and mobile all the way through. Same with modules, you can set any custom margins for that. And then, of course, you're going to want to probably leave this stuff all default. You want responsive layout. Nobody should be creating anything not responsive anymore. And then you can also set the default device breakpoints, depending on the screen width, whether it shows the tablet view or the desktop view or the mobile view. You can change those. You can change those breakpoints where it goes from tablet to a small device, like a mobile phone. So that's some of the defaults there. And then also there, you'll notice there's a CSS tab here. You can add CSS to every single site builder page through this CSS tab. It's not going to apply to just this page. It's going to apply to all of them. And same with JavaScript. And then you make sure you save your settings. I'm going to cancel that though and come back in here. And there are also some site builder global settings. You can enable them. These are going to pull in some basic colors and things. You can mess around with what those do, and you can set some of the defaults through that. And then also you can change the UI brightness, so you can go from dark mode to light mode, and also the O button on the keyboard does that. And then you can access the WordPress admin. You can get help documents. That's going to open up the WPHubSite help information, so you can get right to the knowledge base with help information there. We're not going to go through any of that. And of course, there's keyboard shortcuts. Lots of keyboard shortcuts to help you get through your website, editing your website a lot easier. So the first thing I'm going to do on this page is add a heading. So you'll notice I have all these modules over here. I can drag a heading over, and I can type a heading in here. Yes, I could type contact WPHubSite just like I named my page, Or to simplify it, I can connect this box to the name of the page. So if I change the page name on the back end, it's going to affect this, this heading. So if I hit this little plus icon here, I can connect the post title. And I can make that an H1 tag. And then I can come over here in style and font, and then I can center it. I can even change the font size of the heading, so I can make it really big. Maybe I want to make it bolder. I can even do things like small caps, so it's going to small cap that. Cool things like that. I can underline it. You can do all kinds of things to the title, to those headings. And the really cool thing is that's now connected forever. You can disconnect it. There's an X there, but it's connected as long as I don't mess with it to the page title. So I can go, in the back end and change page titles, and it's going to pull that information into the page itself, which is really handy. I don't have to go through every single page. And then also, if you don't mount this bar to the side, if you open up any box, it's going to open up in the middle here. And then, of course, that's going to close it. So again, you can mount these to the sides. And that's just a nice way to keep it always persistent, always available to you, and it changes depending on if the module is closed or open. Like right now the module settings are closed, so I get a list of modules that I can put in. So back into the settings for the header here, you'll notice there's a general tab. Every module is going to have a general, which are general settings for that module. They also, most of them have a style tab, so you can control the style of the module. And then an advanced tab where you can control more advanced features, like you can control the padding or the margins of this specific module. So you can override the defaults for each module. And you can choose where each module is visible. So you can have it visible only on a computer, only on a tablet, only on a small device. Or you can have it, on a desktop and tablet, but not a mobile phone. So you can control how your modules display, where they display. You can even choose to only display certain modules to logged in or logged out users. You can even use conditional logic. So if you select conditional logic, this box opens, and you can set, based on all kinds of settings, you can set whether this module shows or not. And then there are also animations, which I would highly recommend not overusing these, only when they help the user experience or help clarify the information should they be used. But see, you can do fade in and slide left. You can delay the animation. You can do all that cool stuff. There's a lot of different things you can do with that. And then just make sure you save whenever you make changes in a module. Click the save button at the bottom to save those. You can also save modules for use at a later time. So you can save it as and then name it, so then you can reuse that module on other pages. And you can even make them global. So if you change it in one place on your website, it changes it across the entire site. Think calls to action for this. You can set up a call to action that's at the bottom of every page, and if you change that call to action on one page, it's going to change it across your entire website. That can make management of your website really easy. One more thing also that I wanted to cover on this heading here, I'm going to disconnect it real quick. You can do things like type some text, like extra text, and we'll put a space, and then you can hit the plus icon, and instead of connecting it, I can insert. So whatever the page title is, I can insert that. So I can add custom text in the actual page right before that. So it's going to now be extra contact WPHubSite. So it's going to take the text I typed in there and tack on the page title. So you can create some custom page titles there that don't actually have that in the page title. That's pretty handy when you want to use, when you want to get creative with some SEO stuff. So you can have the page title be longer on the actual site, but the page title's a little bit shorter for SEO purposes. And then also when you're adding modules, right now it's on the modules tab. There are standard modules. You can also add WordPress widgets, and this is how you access your saved modules. And of course, these are all the standard modules. There's tons of really useful modules to choose from, so take advantage of all those. But then there's also these tabs up here, so you can add rows. So I can add 1 column, 2 columns, 3, 4, all these cool things. So I'm going to add down here. Now see how when I drag it down here, there's these boxes? Well, this is going to put it inside the current row, but say I want to create an additional row. I can drag it down here. This is going to create a new row. And so it's going to drag those 2 columns into a new row. So I can do something cool like, this is the header row, whereas this is the content row. So then if I click the little row settings right here, I can go to advanced, and then I can add margins above and below the content. So it spaces out the content a little bit, and so you have row settings, and then if you had a module in here, you'd have module settings. Right now I can move the column, I can duplicate the column, these are the column settings, so I can reset the column widths or the row width. But column settings are useful because I can control the background. See, I want to create a dark green kind of background. So there I have a dark green column, and just a regular column that's transparent. And then I can drag modules into those rows. So I can drag an icon into this column. And let's select an icon. We'll select this one. And then I'm going to come over here into the Style tab. You'll notice I can also type some text in here next to the icon. I'm not going to do that, but I can come over here into the Style, and then here's a option for me to make the size a lot bigger and center that icon. And then maybe I change the icon to white. That's a little bit better, so I can see it at least. Maybe I want to add some padding around this whole column. You don't necessarily want to add the padding around the module itself, because that's only going to apply to that module. Instead, come over to the column icon and then go to column settings, and you can control under advanced here. You can control the padding for the entire column. So I'm going to add 50 pixels to the top and the bottom. Now anything additional I drag into this column is also going to have that padding. That's a much better way to control the padding within a column than doing it with the module itself. So now there's 50 pixels at the top and the bottom of this column, and then there's also 50 pixels at the top and the bottom of this row. So we're adding some spacing and cool stuff. And then also I can drag a text module over into this box. So there I added some text in this column. But keep in mind you don't describe things like to the left as I just wrote in this text, because sometimes for a mobile device that text will actually wrap around underneath this column, so it'll sometimes be below. And then I want to add some padding, so I'm going to go to edit column settings, and then into the advanced tab, and I want to add some padding on the right and the left, so give that text a little bit of space to breathe. And then you can do things like say you want the text to be to align in the center of this column. So if you go to column settings, either column, it doesn't matter, they're all both gonna share the same settings here. As far as width, I can make the width go a little bit more over to this side, and it's while I'm adjusting this, it's adjusting the other column, so the other one will be 60%. But I can also equalize the heights. So if I click yes and then center, see how now the text is in the middle. And then you can control what color text is based on the column only. I can control that here. or I can control the text color from the row. You'll see this has a text color option, so I can select I want text to be that dark blue, and you'll notice there it is, dark blue. I can also control color of text for columns, but you'll see it's going to get overwritten by the row settings, so just be careful with that. The row will override the column, so I'm going to get rid of that, and we'll just stick with that right there. And then let's actually add a heading into here too. You can add multiple modules into any given column or row. So I'm going to add an H2. That's an H1 level heading. So I'm going to add a H2 to this section, how to contact us. And you'll see there now is a heading for that and some text. And you can change the size. You can customize the size. If you don't customize the size of it, it's just going to pull the defaults that you selected in the theme itself. It'll just use the default H1, H2, H3 settings that you had set in the customizer. And again, that was in a previous video. So I'm going to go into a little bit more of these row settings. This is the row settings icon here, because you have a lot of different options here. You can select full width, you can select just a fixed width. So if you set a background color, it's only going to go to the fixed width. And the content will be a fixed width too, but if you select full width with the content at fixed, then the background color is going to spill out to the left and the right of the page, whereas the content will be fixed to that 1200 pixels. And you can override the default, again, right there. And you can even do cool things like the height. You can do full height, so that's going to be the full height of the monitor. It's actually a little bit more because it bases it off of the monitor, not just the browser window. But you can do things like minimum height. So this saying this has to be at least this high. It can be higher if the content spills out of that, but it has to be at least this high. So you can do things like select VW, which is viewport width, and VH, which is viewport height. So that actually is basing it off of the viewport. So if I select 100 there, you'll notice it's a little bit more in line with the viewport. It's still a bit off because I have menus and things open. Usually you wouldn't necessarily use the 100% anyway, but this is going to be 50%, so it's about approximately 50%. It's not an exact science. It is CSS after all. But then you can also align the content within that along the top, center, or bottom. And then you can select things like the background color. So you can select a row background color. And I can change the transparency of that too. So like if you have a texture in the back, you can set it white and then set the transparency, and you'll see, you can create like almost a window, kind of a translucent window to the back. It's kind of cool. So see how it spills the entire width of it, but if I change this to fixed, boom, all of a sudden now I lose that background does not go from the left to the right. I like to stick with full width and fixed. Your website's set by default to that because that's the most useful, most versatile. You can override it on specific pages, but that's going to be the best for most pages. And there we have a pretty ugly page. Maybe I add a little bit more space to the title. Maybe I'm going to add a little bit of padding to the top, and I don't really need to add it to the bottom because the other one has that in the bottom. If you have a background color, then you probably should though. Like maybe I set a background color to the heading. So maybe there's a background color there, but now I need to come over here and add padding to the top and bottom. So the text will be in the middle there. That's really hard to see text though. So for this row, all text that goes into it, I want to be white. That makes it a little more visible. So now you can see I have a nice bar across the title that makes it stand out across the page. But I have this weird white bar, so I should probably go to advanced and take that margin out. Maybe instead, I don't even need the padding really. In fact, I don't need the margin at all. So I'm going to leave those out. Maybe instead I add up some padding. So margin's going to be outside of the color, and the padding is going to create space inside of it. Since I have that viewport height set, it's not necessarily going to push it out any further. So here we end up with a page. We created our first page in Site Builder. It's a pretty basic page, but you have the idea of what all these, what all the settings are. Duplicate, these little row actions let you do a little more there. And then modules, you explore some of these modules. Create a page with a whole bunch of modules on it and just play around with some of the settings. You can drag a 4-column row. I'm going to drag it inside of this row. Seeing you can do all kinds of configurations with rows and columns and stacking. You can even put columns inside of rows. So like these columns are inside of another column. And you can do that a few columns deep. You can nest columns within columns. You cannot continue to do that. Wreak havoc on the website and create just too much code, but you can do it a few levels deep. And then you can drag, like I can drag a module up into this one. And then you can drag modules into each one of these columns. You can get pretty creative in doing different things. I could do that in each one of these columns. I could put one stacked on top of the two. So once you're done with your page and you want to publish it, all you have to do is come over to Done over here, and you can save a draft. Discard will get rid of all your changes, so don't do that unless you're sure you want to lose everything, because it will not be saved for you. But you can save a draft. But if you save a draft, come back and then discard everything, unless you publish that page, it'll discard everything from the draft. So you want to be careful using that. Just make sure you're incrementally building on the page, but keep in mind you can't go back if your page is in draft mode. You either have to publish it or get rid of it. So publishing it makes it public to everybody. Now, if I hit publish, everybody will be able to see this website. And then, of course, when you publish it, you're going to be on the front end right here. If you want to get back to the back end to edit things like SEO settings, the slug, things like that, you can go to Edit Page up here. Or if you're on a front page of any Site Builder page, you can access a Site Builder right here. And notice it's going to go right back in a Site Builder. So it's a pretty cool way to manage your pages right from the front end. You never actually have to go into the back end. Okay, so I said at the end of the video I was going to go over building a page with a block editor, so I'm going to create a new page here. So I created a new page called Block Editor. I'm going to save that as a draft. And then you'll notice the slug, it created this long, not necessarily a bad slug for this page, but I'm going to change it to block. And then in order to use the block editor when you're creating a new page, if you've created a page in Site Builder, it's really hard to go back to the block editor. Your content's going to get kind of messed up. But creating a new page, you can just hit the Use Standard Editor button right here. And that's it. Now you're using the block editor to create a page. And to use the block editor, you can add a new block. You can just start typing. By default, the first block created is a paragraph block. And there it is, the little paragraph icon. I can change the block to a heading. I can change it back to a paragraph. I can change it to all kinds of things. In order to add a new block, I can just hit enter and it's going to come up with, it's going to create another paragraph block. But if I want to change it, I can click this little plus icon. You'll notice these little icons over here. Those are block types that I've previously used. So they're kind of like a quick launch method of creating a new block. This plus brings up the menu for all the blocks you can create. So you can create layout elements like columns, different things like that. You can, I'm going to cover just putting an image in. So let's insert an image block. And I'm going to, instead of uploading, I'm going to select an image from the media library. And there's an image from the media library, and I can do things like center it. And then, of course, when I'm on a module, this bar over here, it will let me change the settings of the block. So you'll notice on the settings panel over here, there's settings for the full document. Those, that's how you get back to the document settings. And then there's the block settings. I don't have a block selected, but if I click on one, it's going to show the settings for that. So I can set the alt text for the image. I can choose the image size. I want to actually do full size. I wouldn't recommend changing the dimensions here because it can make the image a little blurry. And then see there's like advanced tabs where you can set CSS classes, things like that. And there are also elements that you can enable and disable in the block editor with these little 3 dots right here. If you click on that, you can choose the mode you're editing in, so full screen mode, top toolbar, things like that. I'm going to go back to normal. And you can go into the code editor to switch everything into code. Looks a little bit of a disaster. And if you have a block editor page, you can actually switch it into Site Builder. So it'll convert this into, it's not going to be that pretty. The content will switch. The look of it may not, depending on what kind of sites you've chosen. But you can also choose different options for enabling, there's the tips that I can enable. You can enable custom fields. Those are some advanced settings, but you can turn things off on the block editor so you can, customize the look of it a little bit. And so you can also, you can add blocks above or below any block. So if you click on any block, you get this little menu. You can hide the block settings, you can duplicate a block, you can insert a new block before this one or after, you can edit the HTML of a block, you can add this block to reusable blocks. You can do all kinds of cool things with blocks. It's not as powerful of an editor as Site Builder, but you can do some relatively advanced functions, formatting, things like that. For pages, again, use Site Builder. It's way more powerful, way more easier, if that's a word. It's a lot easier. For blog posts, you're going to have to use the block editor. You can enable a Site Builder. It's not recommended at all because of the way templates and WordPress works, things like that. So really, it's best to stick to the Site Builder for pages and the block editor for posts. Block editor is fine for pages, it's just not as powerful, but Site Builder is not good for posts, so it's not recommended whatsoever. There's a lot of different reasons for that, for managing your website. If you want to hear all those reasons, ask me. I'll be happy to tell you, but just know that it's going to be more difficult in the long run to manage your website if you try to use Site Builder on posts. So that's it. And then I'll show you here, we're going to convert this to Site Builder real quick. And it just goes back to here and I can launch the Site Builder. And there's the content that I had in the block editor. And you'll notice I didn't turn off the title on here, so it shows in there. I like to do the title in the Site Builder itself. Gives me more capabilities of formatting it and whatnot. That's it for creating your first page in Site Builder and the block editor. Really just your WPHubSite website. That's how you create pages. So go out there, create lots of pages. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. There are resources down in the description, so be sure you click that. And then we're always putting out new videos with help, tutorials, things you can do with your WPHubSite website. So be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so when new videos come out, you're going to be able to see all those changes. Thanks for watching, and just be sure to keep watching the Getting Started series. I'll go through every detail of the things you need to do to have a really cool WPHubSite website and get your base knowledge to build an awesome website that integrates fully with HubSpot. And then in another video, I'm going to cover embedding all those HubSpot pieces inside of your page. You can do it in Site Builder, you can do it with a block editor, you can do all kinds of really cool stuff with HubSpot. So thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.